So it's the end of the day, and just had some thoughts I thought I'd get out. And it's a mess back here, but I'm still working on it, you know? It's a work in progress. But should turn out a pretty nice little sleeper. Just like the most bare bones essentials. Some solar lights. Fold down futon for a bed. Table. Pedestal table. And 2 little bench seats that are about, once you actually sit in them, the roof is so short that you're actually kind of have to lean forward. Unless you're a kid. Be good for a kid, I guess. But sleeps 2. Goes anywhere. This thing is a beast. I lifted this thing like 8 inches. I think it sits... it's got to be like... the back bumper has got to be at least like 2 feet off the ground. Anyway. Just had some thoughts. It's like the end of another beautiful day in the Rockies. And perfect temperatures. But for too long, you know, the fall will move in, and we'll be in for another long, cold winter. But I just thought I'd get some thoughts out. I think that's the 3rd time I've said that, but I know I'm still formulating some thoughts in my head. I was just thinking, you know, sometimes it's the most simple things in life that are the most profound and mean the most to us. Like all those little things we take for granted that have been around since childhood, like you know, our families and our close friends, those shared human experiences, those bonds that make us human. That, I mean, think of how lonely a world it would be without anybody to share it with, right? We get so selfish chasing these, these little trinkets of the merchants of men's souls, right? Book of Revelation, chapter 18. You know, it's really the devil wants to keep us chasing after these things. The merchants of men's souls want us to keep chasing after this elusive concept of, you know, more. It's never enough, right? You can always have more. More possessions, more nicer car. As I talk, I'm looking at this hummingbird. He just flew by. If you heard that. That was really cool. I wish I would have had the camera pointed that way, because he was just kind of like dancing along the flickering light through the aspen tree. And that's another God-given example of, you know, the simple things. Like, it reminded me of, I'm also looking at the bed of flowers in front of me. And there's a verse about King Solomon. He was the greatest, well, the Bible describes him as the richest, most wisest man who ever lived. And yet the verse goes, consider the lilies of the field, right? And Solomon in all of his glory was not clothed as beautifully as one of these, a flower. How humbling is that, right? And how humbling is it to know how small we are in relation to the God of the universe? And that's pretty profound when you think of this concept, the greatest concept I can think of, that mankind, that our brains, as complex as they are, as intricate as they are, seemingly infinite, right? The way science describes the human brain, the most complex organ in the known world. how small we are compares to the greatest concept we can think of, which is the Almighty, the Alpha, the Omega, the beginning, the end, the great I Am. How tiny and insignificant with our little fleeting lifespans. But then how great God is to step down from such power, such majesty, such a lofty height, to step down and to take part in the human experience, and then to humble himself, right? So great a God to humble himself in order to show us how to live, what his will for is, what his will is for us in our lives, each and every one of our lives. The revealing of his character. The revealing of his character in his Son, Jesus, the Messiah, the Christ. That's, I've said before, I've studied many world religions, Confucianism, Taoism, Buddhism, Hinduism. That's a doozy. Islam. There's all these little side Shintoism and all this different. But I studied a lot of different religions, and when I was younger, and none of them ever appealed to my mind, to my reason. Like the verse says, come let us reason together, right? Like God wants us to use our brains. He doesn't want blind obedience. He doesn't want his followers to be stupid. Follow the science, right? No. You got to question the science. You got to question your faith, your beliefs. And God's fine with that, because you know what? He can withstand, all the criticisms that the devil or any of his allies can throw at God. And that's where this whole kind of great controversy of how sin entered the world, and what are we here for, right? Like, if it was all done at the cross, then why are people still being born? Life goes on, people are born, people die. The verse says, you've been saying this from, you've been saying this forever, that the second coming was near, that the end was near, and that's the attitude, right? Like, it just seems like it'll go on forever, but there's a great controversy. There are other worlds, there are other created beings that are looking intensively at how God's plan is unfolding on this little tiny speck, this pale blue dot, as Carl Sagan termed it. I used to really be into a lot of astronomy and physics, and I think I still have that book somewhere, The Pale Blue Dot. And that was the profound realization that different scientists, as well as Carl Sagan, saw in that image of Voyager as it sailed off into the pitch black of space. And it took that one last image of Earth, and it's this tiny little fuzzy bright blue dot. So the profound understanding of, in the big picture, you look at the universe, and it's almost scary. The isolation, I remember when I was a kid, I used to do a lot of astrophotography. I used to capture comets and falling stars or meteors, and I'd capture star trails and all kinds of. Got Hale-Bopp was a big one. Really cool pictures. I used to take 35 millimeter before there's digital, and it's always in the best times for photography, or in the dead of winter when it's freezing outside. I remember my hands were just, I lose feeling in my hands being out all by myself, staring up at this empty sky, this empty space, these blank, staring eyes of the twinkling stars above. And I thought, man, I always have this sense of like loneliness, right? And we are really, everybody gets all excited about Elon Musk taking us to Mars and all this. Well, think of how many years, even if you're a complete atheist, if you're a complete whatever, materialist, if your only faith or only hope is in science to take mankind to the stars, right? If you really understand the distances surrounding us and the nearest star, it's not going to happen remotely anytime soon. Not anywhere near close in our lifetime or our kids' lifetimes. One estimate was thousands and thousands of years to try to just travel that distance. I think it's like Alpha Centauri or something like that. It's been a while since I read my astronomy books. But we are really isolated out here. And maybe that's for a purpose, right? Like, if we understand the concepts in the Bible of the fallen state of this world. Is that Homer again? And sin and how it corrupts creation. And there's probably a good reason why, we've kind of been shipwrecked here on this remote little planet, far enough away from any other civilization to ever spread the curse of sin throughout God's creation. And it is kind of a laboratory, right? Laboratory Earth. And it's, like I said, the biblical Christian, I say biblical because there's a lot of Christians that aren't biblical. They don't even logically connect the different verses in the Bible. They just, kind of, like they say, cherry pick the data. That's kind of how some Christians are with the Bible. But the biblical Christian religion is the most logical lens you can view the world with, and our purpose in it. And science can explain the physical world, how things that were created, that we're surrounded with, operate and function, right? And we can measure. But science can never do what a lot of scientists seem like they try to put themselves in the position of like a priest, and they try to take the role of God and describe, well, this is how the universe was, at the whatever fraction of a second of the Big Bang, and even before, they'll even take it before the Big Bang. Well, that's not exactly something you can test in the laboratory, and it's pretty much a religion. So you can call yourself a scientist all you want, but you're still peddling your own religion, and it takes faith to believe that. But where's I going with all this? I started out with the idea of the simple things in life, and the merchants of men's souls. It talks about in Revelations 18, and how they want to convince us all, to keep chasing after these little trinkets, these little, you can't take things to the grave, right? And you can't take all your possessions with you when you die. The ancient Egyptian pharaohs tried that, and guess what? Along came grave robbers and stole all their possessions. So somebody's trying to call. Anyway, let's just try to appreciate the little moments we have, the people in our lives, and we get caught up a lot. I know I do, with all these negative things that are happening in the world, and man, it can consume us. It can definitely take our attention off of those simple things that we're surrounded with, those blessings, right? I guess that's what I'm getting at. Don't forget God's blessings. I'm starting to sound like a pastor, a preacher, but this is how I get out my little quiet time with a camera pointed at me, I guess. And I figured I'd share because there's nobody else here actually to share with, so I'm kind of lonely right now, I guess. Everybody's gone. And it's quiet, and I like it, actually. I like to be able to hear the birds. You can hear the little buzz of the Hummer go by. That's little things like that we often we grow older when we're a child. Remember when we were a child and we just were full of wonder, and an hour seemed to last like an eternity, right? Like that Blake poem, William Blake, Eternity in a Wildflower, or something like that, talks about. And it's true though, if we the older we get, we just close our mind off. We have to. I remember when I was an artist, I had to train my brain how to see the world around me, because you create these little facsimiles. Is that the right word? Kind of like prototypes of reality, right? Like, this is a tree. You do these things to make sense of the world around you and to make quick decisions, right? Like, I always said, like, those of you who have done, which I don't recommend for the kids, any hallucinogenic drugs, I've thought about, man, what it does is basically opens the gates. There's a book about that, Gateways to Perception, and it opens your perception, the gates, the signals coming in. There's a reason why those gates are there in your brain, to only allow in so much information, because if we were high all the time, basically, we would be sitting around staring at flowers, and something would come by and eat us. It wouldn't exactly be a good way to survive in the real world, but there is a lot of wonder around us, and we don't need drugs to notice it. You just need to, like, a lot of us have so much dialogue going on in our brains. Like, we have these real firm beliefs in the world around us, right? And this is the way it is, and that's all there is to it. And I gotta vent on other people around me and tell them how it is, and this is, like, and they're like, yeah, that's right. Okay, well, you have we all do, a very small little window of the world that we can focus on at any one time. And there's a big world out here, and it's that concept of the still small voice. We gotta silence our own minds sometimes, and I'm not saying some kind of like new agey meditation where you just empty your mind and be one with everything. I don't think that really works. I mean, meditation to me is to think of, just to look around and take in God's design and the complexity and the beauty. And it's like, wow. I mean, it fills you. It doesn't empty you, Or the Bible. You can read the Bible. You can meditate on the Word of God. But, and its truth, just the nature of God, the character of God. And you can find that in nature as well. That's the, like the second book of creation, I guess, is the second book to the Bible, I guess. One way to look at it. So yeah, there's a lot of beauty around us. Let's not overlook the beauty. Let's not overlook the blessings that God has given us. And realize that, we don't need all these things in life. We just, like, I'm sitting in front of this simple little sleeping quarters, this little sleeper camper that I've been working on for way too long now, but it's finally taken shape. And hopefully, it'll pay off. I'll make some money off of it, whoever I can find to sell it to. But we don't need a whole lot, And Jesus' original followers didn't have a whole lot, right? His disciples were told to drop everything and follow the Messiah. And it's not so easy to do these days, and I'm not saying you have to, but I am saying you might want to reevaluate what you work for in life, because what you put your time into is literally what you worship. Think of it that way. If you spend, like, how much of your lifespan are you going to, how much have you ever stepped back and thought and tried to do the math as best as you can, or just a rough estimate? How much of your life are you willing to work for that house, or that fancy car, or whatever it is? It's like the verse goes, where your mind is, where your heart is, there also is your treasure. And it's good now and then to just kind of step back. I've never been like a career guy, but I know some people are, and they're really driven by their career, and that's good. I mean, hard work is a good virtuous character trait. But, we got to keep our lives in perspective. That's all I'm saying. Is what you're working for worth it? Or would your time better be spent doing something else? Can you live within some smaller means, maybe? Do you need that huge house? Do you need that brand new car? Just some things to think about. I live pretty humbly for a long time now. Some people I talk to, they have a hard time believing how little I've learned to live off of, to get away with, to get by with. But, I got a lot of spare time. Like right now, I got the rest of the afternoon. I'm just hanging out and making videos, That's what I do. But I'm not by any means living luxurious, but I am living freer than most. And that, to me, that freedom on how you spend your time is priceless. So, cheers. And have a good afternoon. Thanks for listening. We'll see you.